Picture the world in the 14th century, a time of chivalry, exploration, and unfortunately disease. Europe was a bustling hub of activity. Cities were growing, trade was booming, and people were on the move. But with progress came a price. The living conditions of the time were less than ideal. Overcrowding was common, sanitation was poor, and medical knowledge was rudimentary at best. Many homes were small and families large. This close-knit living often led to the rapid spread of disease. The streets were not much better, open sewers ran down the center, and garbage was often tossed out of windows. Clean drinking water was a luxury, not a given. In the realm of medicine, the understanding of disease was limited. Illness was often attributed to an imbalance of the body's humors or divine punishment. Treatments were based more on superstition than science. Bloodletting, leech therapy, and prayers were common responses to sickness. In this world ripe with conditions conducive to disease, the stage was set for an uninvited visitor. A silent killer hidden in the fur of a common rat was about to make its deadly debut. This was Yersinia pestis, the bacterium responsible for the bubonic plague, also known as the Black Death. The bubonic plague was not a new disease. It had surfaced before in other parts of the world, but in the 14th century it found an environment where it could spread unchecked. The disease was highly contagious, with symptoms including fever, chills, weakness, and swollen lymph nodes. It was a painful and often deadly illness with a mortality rate of up to 60%. This was a disease that would forever change the course of history. It would impact societies, economies, and cultures in ways that are still felt today. The stage was set for one of the most devastating pandemics in human history, the bubonic plague. The bubonic plague, also known as the Black Death, made its deadly debut in Europe in 1347. This grim reaper, believed to have originated in Asia, found its way to Europe through the bustling network of trade routes. Merchant ships, with their holds laden with exotic goods, unknowingly also carried a deadly stowaway, the plague. The harbinger of this devastating disease was an unassuming culprit, the flea. Fleas infesting the rats that thrived on these merchant ships were the perfect vehicle for the bacteria causing the plague. As these rats scurried off the ships at each port, their flea passengers would find new hosts amongst the local rat population. And so began the rapid and relentless spread of the disease. Once the bacteria found its way into a human host, the symptoms of the disease would quickly take hold. Sufferers would experience a sudden onset of fever and chills, accompanied by weakness and swollen lymph nodes, often leading to the formation of painful, pus-filled boils. A sense of dread would settle over communities as these symptoms became all too familiar. The plague was no respecter of persons. It struck down the rich and poor alike, its cruel hand sparing neither the young nor the old. The mortality rate was shockingly high, with about 60% of those infected succumbing to the disease. In some areas, the death toll was even higher, wiping out whole communities. The spread of the plague was further exacerbated by the lack of understanding of disease transmission at the time. Theories abounded, from miasma or bad air to divine punishment, but none could stem the tide of death that swept across Europe. The bubonic plague left an indelible mark on the psyche of Europe. From bustling, vibrant communities, towns and cities were reduced to ghostly shadows of their former selves. Within a few years, the plague had decimated Europe, leaving a trail of death in its wake. The bubonic plague didn't just leave physical devastation in its wake, it also caused profound societal changes. As the plague ravaged Europe, it created a chasm in the societal fabric that was hard to ignore. One of the most immediate impacts was the severe labor shortages. With so many lives claimed by the plague, there were fewer people to work the fields, tend to the livestock, and keep the wheels of commerce turning. This resulted in a shift in the economic power dynamic, with the surviving workers now having increased bargaining power. The plague also sparked a crisis of faith. Many who had once found solace in religion now questioned why a benevolent God would allow such suffering. This religious questioning led to an increase in critical thinking and skepticism, laying the groundwork for the intellectual revolution of the Renaissance. Art and culture, too, were not immune to the plague's influence. The macabre reality of daily life began to seep into artistic expression, with themes of mortality and the fleeting nature of life becoming more prevalent. The plague also led to a dark consequence: the persecution of minority groups who were scapegoated for the disease. Jews, beggars, lepers, and foreigners were among those targeted. This persecution was fueled by fear and misunderstanding, and it serves as a grim reminder of how easily societies can turn on their most vulnerable in times of crisis. In the face of such catastrophic loss, society was forced to adapt and change in unexpected ways. The bubonic plague not only reshaped the physical landscape of Europe, but it also altered the societal and cultural norms of the time. It was a period of upheaval and transformation, the echoes of which can still be felt in the world today. And so the plague, while a harbinger of death and destruction, also became a catalyst for change, driving society to question, adapt, and evolve. In the face of such catastrophic loss, society was forced to adapt and change in unexpected ways. While medical knowledge in the 14th century was limited, attempts to combat the plague were varied and innovative. In the face of such a terrifying and mysterious disease, the medical community of the time had to think outside the box. Despite the limited understanding of disease transmission, some of the earliest forms of quarantine were implemented to control the spread of the plague. Ships arriving in port cities were isolated and prevented from docking for 40 days, a practice that gave birth to the term quarantine, derived from the Italian quaranta giorni, meaning 40 days. It wasn't just about isolation, though. Medical practitioners of the time also turned to nature for remedies. Aromatic herbs and spices were thought to purify the air and ward off the disease. People would carry posies of herbs or burn rosemary and juniper in their homes, believing that the fragrant smoke could protect them. Perhaps one of the most iconic symbols of the plague era was the plague doctor. These physicians were specifically hired by towns and cities to treat plague patients. Their distinctive beak-like masks were filled with aromatic substances designed to protect the doctor from the miasma or bad air they believed carried the disease. However, the reality was that these measures had limited success. The lack of knowledge about the bacterium Yersinia pestis, the real culprit behind the plague, meant that the mortality rate remained devastatingly high. Bloodletting, lancing of buboes, and other medical treatments of the time were largely based on guesswork and superstition, rather than scientific understanding. Even so, it's important to appreciate the innovation and determination of these early physicians. They were dealing with an unseen enemy, and while their methods might seem primitive to us now, they were doing their utmost with the tools and knowledge they had. Despite their best efforts, the medical treatments of the time were largely ineffective against the relentless advance of the bubonic plague. But their legacy laid the groundwork for the future understanding of disease control and management. The bubonic plague left a lasting legacy, shaping the course of history in profound ways. This dark period of human history, awash with death and despair, led to some unexpected transformations. Society, as it was known then, underwent a seismic shift. As the plague decimated the population, labor became scarce. This scarcity allowed surviving workers to demand better wages and conditions, leading to a shift in the societal structures. The middle class began to emerge, and feudalism, the dominant social system of the Middle Ages, started to crumble. But the plague didn't just reshape societies, it also advanced medical knowledge. The sheer scale of devastation pushed physicians of the time to rethink their understanding of disease. It was a brutal but significant push towards the modern field of epidemiology. Theories about miasma, or bad air, were gradually abandoned in favor of understanding the role of rats and fleas in spreading the disease. This shift in perspective laid the foundation for future studies in contagion, disease transmission, and public health. And then there's the world of art and culture. The plague's deathly touch reached even into these realms, leading to changes in the way people expressed their experiences and emotions. The macabre dance of death, a common motif in the art of the period, reflects the pervasive sense of mortality that the plague engendered. Literature, too, was impacted. The Decameron, a collection of novellas by Boccaccio, offers a glimpse into life during the plague, showing us that even in the face of death, human stories continue to unfold. Today, the plague continues to be a subject of study and fascination. It serves as a stark reminder of our vulnerability to disease and the potential for a single pathogen to change the course of history. The bubonic plague, a grim reminder of our vulnerability to disease, continues to echo through the centuries. The bubonic plague, a chapter of human history that we cannot forget. We've journeyed from its dawn, tracing the devastating path it carved across continents. We've examined its societal impact, the profound changes it brought about, and the medical response that, in many ways, laid the groundwork for modern healthcare. We've also explored the plague's lasting legacy, a testament to human resilience in the face of catastrophic adversity. The bubonic plague is more than just a historical event, it's a lesson, it's a stark reminder of our vulnerability but also of our capacity to adapt and overcome. It highlights the importance of medical science and the power of human spirit and unity in times of crisis. We delve into history not just to learn facts but to gain perspective, to understand the trials and tribulations that have shaped our world. It's crucial to remember our past, to understand our present, and to navigate our future. Don't forget to subscribe for more intriguing historical insights. Until next time.